Okay, and we're going to go straight into introducing your woman for test number 1. This is the first of 3 heats. Starting in lane 1, we've got Asma Deroshi. Okay,
In lane number 2, we've got Maxine Smith.
Lane 3, Carla van Staden.
In lane number 4, Iggy Hossam Aluen.
And she's representing Egypt.
Yeah.
Lane number 5, we got Tammy Taylor.
In lane number 6, Cora Lee van Tonder.
Lane number 7, Alicia Stoop.
Lane number 8, Megan Fall.
And lane number 9, Jessie Skinner. Couple of well-known names already in this lineup over here. Lane number 5, Tammy Taylor, one of the older ladies that are competing in the individual semi-final. She's 39 years old, turning 40 later this year. I know between Tammy Taylor and Mary, we've got, two of, let's say, the more experienced athletes in this field of play.
Definitely. And this is one of those events that's really going to, apart from the inherent skill that comes along with being an elite level CrossFitter, tax that experience, right? Because you need to know how to throttle your engine and your grip and your posterior chain relative to the entire duration of this workout.
It's long, but I think we're going to get some interesting tactics and to feed off of for the rest of the heats. So let's just wait and see what these ladies have to do with it.
Absolutely, and for those of you watching in or tuning in for the first time, it is the Rebel Renegade Games. This is the semi-finals of the CrossFit Games out here in Africa. We have an absolutely jam-packed weekend for you, stacked with some of the top talent in Africa, all that Africa has to exhibit. One position available for men, women, and top teams to stamp their way through to the CrossFit Games. A big shout out as well to Noble, the official sponsors of the CrossFit Games.
Trying to find the... And as mentioned before, we don't start with a 3, 2, 1, go. It's a simple start of a horn.
And they're off and onto the assault bike.
A 3,000 meter assault bike. It's not long enough to try and overpace this, the assault bike. This should be kind of finishing off for athletes in around about the 4-minute mark.
Yeah, you're seeing across the board the ladies really approaching this intelligently. You want to make sure that you don't go out and blow out your shoulders, blow out your grip, blow out your legs on this one. You want to kind of casually steady into a pace because 30 minutes, Matt, as a time cap, that's very indicative of what we can expect these sorts of athletes to come through with.
And again, smart programming from Adrian Bosman. A workout that's going to tax your legs and your grip. So then, why not throw in the 3,000 meter echo bike to start off the whole thing where you have to use both legs and grip?
Why not just make it tricky? You're right. And as far as Bos's program is concerned, I'm going to mention this over the entire duration of the weekend, but this is typically indicative of it, is that there's a bit of a full send trap in every one of his workouts. Like, you're really going to want to feel baited to get an early ascendancy here, as we saw with Mayhem Africa in the last event of the last heat. You don't need to be pulling out in front to get the event win. It's steady, calculated, meticulous pacing can get you the W at the end of the day. So heat number 1 for the ladies, 1 of 4 that is going to be going down.
Right, so just having a look here, we've got our first heat of ladies sitting on the bike. This is a long 3,000 meter bike. So we're going to use this time to have a look at our kind of female top competitors for the weekend as well. Obviously, you just saw the teams throw down. Michelle Morand was the top female out of last year's semi-final and punching her ticket to the games. But obviously, she's not competing this year in the individual division, which opens up the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, top of mind, Christina Levitikatidis, missing out that spot by one spot last year. Looks like she's taken the time in the off-season to really go back, take stock of what's happened, put a maniacal focus on stamping her ticket to the games. Incredible exhibition at quarterfinals, and here she is, looking for that number one spot this weekend.
Yeah, so Christina definitely coming in as the crowd favorite, finishing second last year. Also, finishing in third position last year in 2022 in the Down Under Championship, winning 2 events over the weekend. This was also her best open finish in 2023. She finished 76th worldwide, which is, incredible. Directly behind her, we've got Michelle Bazinet and Mariska Smith. So Michelle Bazinet, not a uncommon name to the Africa semi-final. This will be her third semi-final, and she actually punched her ticket in 2021 to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, well, she finished in 32nd, which was an incredible finish. Also, just to mention, currently living in the United States and getting her training done there. So excited to see just what that type of training does with regards to this weekend's events. Yeah, also just to mention, you'll notice one of the favorites usually heading into these weekends, a vet in the South African CrossFit circuit, Dina Swift, unfortunately having to pull out. So you won't be seeing her this weekend, but as mentioned, Christina Levitikatidis, Mariska Smith, Michelle Bazinet, look out for these names this weekend.
Mariska Smith, the qualifying last year with her team from CrossFit Commit, filling the spot of Tiger Valley, not actually able to go to the games either. So Mariska Smith in her first year pulling out of team, going individual, and the only competitor that is actually South Africa or from South Africa, lives, trains, and works in South Africa in this top 3.
Absolutely. Just back to the event on the floor now. We've seen an early move. We've got our first athletes getting off of that 3,000 meter echo bike ride and now transitioning through to their sled pulls.
And this will be the viewer's first kind of sight of the sled. Very simple, very basic, a piece of material on the ground.
Absolutely.
So not your normal sled that you might find in your local CrossFit affiliate.
Rudimentary in design, but destructive in its purpose. You can see the ladies, and you can see by the sheer effort being put behind every single one of those pulls. 3 pulls of this, Matt. No, I mean, an absolute tall order.
And right there on your screen, that was Megan Fall, one of the strongest ladies in the whole field.
We're seeing an early ascendancy in lanes 2 and 6 now. Great pull technique coming through here. As mentioned before, that hip drive you'll see as you get closer, starting to avoid it, but great form out here at the moment.
Remember, this is just the first of 3 lengths that these ladies need to do, complete with their sled.
With this rebel tactics, as you mentioned earlier, where you can make up a little bit of time to recover is on that transition. So you'll see a bunch of the ladies now moving back onto their second length of the first 3 lengths. And you kind of want to make sure, Matt, that you get a nice steady walk and an opportunity to get your lungs back underneath you and your grip back in your hands.
Right in the middle of the screen there, we're looking at Coralie van Tonder. She is leading this heat at the moment, almost half a length ahead of the rest of the ladies in the field.
Yeah, getting down some incredible work and almost ready to make that third transition already. Beautiful work being done out there.
That sled needs to pass fully over the line before the athlete can pick up the rope and return back to the opposite end of the field.
Yeah, Matt, look, I know we mentioned this in the tactics, but it's a heavy load. And I think the nature of the sled being as rudimentary as it is ultimately means that the workload is significant.
Tammy Taylor in the middle of your screen right now, busy with her second length.
Hereafter, so 3,000 assault in the bag, heading then over to 2,000 meters on the runner.
We've got your first three ladies already heading back to the opposite end of the field for their third set of sled drags. And as soon as they've completed this, they'll be heading back onto the assault runner for their 2,000 meter run.
Matt, I'm just going to say this outright. As a more average CrossFitter myself, I don't think that time cap would be significant enough for me to even consider getting anywhere near it.
Yesterday during the setup, I saw these sleds going out and I saw the demo team yanking on the sleds as well. And I mean, that men's weight, 102 kilos on a loaded sled, I mean, that's a piece of material dragging on a rubber floor as well. So the amount of drag on top of the amount of weight is just...
And let's just clarify here, the demo team are quarterfinals athletes.
Yeah.
For those of us who are mere mortals, like...
And semi-finals athletes from last year.
Absolutely.
But on your screen now, we've got Coralie van Tonde. She is your first female onto the 2,000 meter assault runner.
I really think she's attacking this workout intelligently at the moment. You'll see not trying to go incredibly sendy on the run. She timed her bike well. She and actually wasn't the first off the bike, but really made up some time on the sled pull.
Having a look here at lane one, we've got Asma Durici jumping onto her assault runner for the 2,000 meter run.
Getting a bit of a smile there mid-workout. Tammy Taylor looking steady on this workout. It's a good attack strategy. I just don't think that this is where the race is won and lost. If you put in too much energy at this point, you beckon the burnout a little too soon.
Going back to a conversation earlier that I had with Stretch here in the booth, the assault runners coming out onto the field, and I don't know what you have to say about it, Kent, but not really a piece of equipment that's super common in your local affiliate. Firstly, a very expensive piece of equipment in South Africa, and to have multiple in your affiliate when we live in a place that allows us to run outdoors pretty much 365 days a year. How do you think these athletes are going to manage running on kind of a new machine?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the nature of the sport is broad in its attack of the domain. So much to say that I think the adaptability might be questioned here. As we've seen, the programming over the entire weekend really challenges adaptability. I think these ladies will deal well with it as we're currently seeing, but you're right, Matt. A very expensive piece of equipment. I have not seen it personally in one of our local boxes yet. Maybe you guys have it in your local box?
Most definitely not.
Yeah, that's like 4 rowers, right?
and that's kind of the point, is that would you rather, kind of on the broad spectrum of an affiliate owner, have 4 or 5 rowing machines for your affiliate, as opposed to one assault runner, where the only time that in local competition we might see the assault runner would be in something like a semi-finals event.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, I think we're blessed within the context of living in Africa that there's just so much opportunity to get outdoors and express your fitness. At the end of the day, no matter what level of fitness you're at with regards to your CrossFit journey, the opportunity to express that fitness in some type of sporting modality is ultimately the joy that we get to express within the context of the sport.
As you can see on your screen, most of our women back onto the 2,000 meter run, but in lane number 3, we've got Carla van Staden still struggling a little bit with her sled drags.
So interesting strategy here. Coralie now just taking a bit of a break. I think she's being very intentional about her rest here. We'll see whether that move pays dividends in just a little bit, but I think I agree with the sentiment, just that the race is not more than likely won or lost on the runner. As we saw in the last heat, she did not get off the machine first, but when it comes to the sled pull, she was dominant.
Just having a look at the ladies on this field of play, we've got 4 returning athletes from FITS in Cape Town previously. FITS in Cape Town being the Africa Semi-Final event for the previous 2 years until we just moved it this year, rebranded to the Rebel Renegade Games and moved province from the Western Cape to Gauteng province, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Carla van Standen put in an absolutely massive effort here, but for those of you watching, that load on this surface with that type of design, really, really, really hard to move.
And then just going back to your leading lady that jumped onto her assault runner first, Coralie van Tonde, has been a semi-finals athlete in the past, but only last year and went team. So out of team in 2022, going straight into her first individual appearance as a female athlete, doing very well in this heat.
Yeah, she's paced this fantastically to date and did take a break at the 1K mark. So let's see, Matt, just if that was the strategy that pays off, and if so, maybe that's something to add to the tactics.
On your screen now, we've got Carla van Standen, still 2.5 meters out of finishing off her 3rd length of her sled drags.
Matt, quick one. Have you spent time on the assault runner yourself?
I have tested out the assault runner on display at a couple of events or competitions that I've been at. My hammies went straight away.
Absolutely, because that little bit of an incline really triggers a slightly different stimulus from running on the street, yes?
Yeah, and I think trying to kind of mimic the perfect running style by having that curve in the middle of the runner, it forces you to actually strike your foot down, drag towards the back of you, and then almost flick up behind your body. And that's really what fires up the calves and the hamstrings.
Absolutely. You mentioned just almost perfecting the running style. I think for anybody out there who's a heel striker, a particularly difficult task to run on an assault bike because it really forces you into a 4-foot running style.
We can see there on a screen, we're just approaching the 900 meter mark. Couldn't see which athlete that was from the back.
Also to mention, a 30-minute time cap on this workout. We've just passed the halfway mark. These athletes still looking good and steady. Also to mention, at this point, we've probably seen the bulk of the work being done from a machine perspective. We've still got to get through to the next rope pull.
I think that 1,000-meter ski erg to finish things off is quite standard. Like a 1,000-meter ski, we're looking probably about a 2:30 minute, especially because it's kind of on the home stretch for these ladies. And then going back to equipment availability, a ski erg is probably very regularly programmed in 90% of these athletes' daily programming. So just this 2,000-meter assault runner right in the middle, probably the kicker for this event.
Absolutely, and I'm going to put good money on the fact that we should see a transition happening very, very soon. As mentioned before, some early ascendancy on the sled pull from the lady who was previously in your view. Cora, that was. So Matt, interesting approach from these various athletes. Obviously the grip, the shoulder fatigue possibly coming into play. You're noticing a lot of athletes running with their hands a little bit lower in an attempt, yes, maybe to be less efficient on the run, but to save some of the grip strength for a little bit later.
We have to keep in mind that this is event 1 of 7 tests for these ladies in the matter of 3 days. So you might see a little bit of hesitation, holding back. I wouldn't be so sure being in the first event. I mean, these ladies are in heat 3 and are trying to actively climb up the leaderboard and maybe just earn a spot in that second heat. Tomorrow, and, going into Sunday. But yeah, as you say, you have to be smart. You have to be wise. This is not one workout for the weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just consider at the tail end of this weekend, we've got a snatch and run event.
Tammy Taylor just sticking her finger up there. It looks like she's indicating maybe 100 meters left.
If you look at it, we've got a snatch and run event at the tail end of this weekend that is going to challenge the cumulative fatigue that you've incurred over the entire course of the week. So managing your first workout well is of utmost importance.
And as you say, tomorrow we've got 2 800-meter runs coming on this assault runner. So if these guys ever had a time to kind of figure out their rhythm on the competition floor, the time is now in a 2,000-meter run.
Oh, absolutely.
The most amount of running that we've seen programmed in a semi-finals event, I think, ever.
Absolutely. Matt, you, from what I gather, at least compared to myself, way more proficient runner. Talk to me just in terms of footwear. What would you be wearing if you are tackling on a 2-kilometer run within the context of this workout?
Oh, running is not my strong point. I won't deny that. But in a workout like this, I would stick to my Metcon. My Metcon, I put a lot of miles into my regular kind of training shoes. So, I take that 0 to 5 kilometer, rating of your full all-rounded shoe to heart.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to grip on the ground, like pulling through that sled, I wouldn't want to be running in a shoe that's nice and spongy and comfortable. But then through all 3 of my rounds of sled push, your feet are popping off the top of your foam-based shoe and maybe your toes jabbing out the end of them. So you're asking me personally, I would just stick to my everyday training shoe. The distance isn't really far enough. It's not needed for the assault bike or the ski erg.
Maxine Smith looking like she's looking ready to wrap up her run, that 2,000-meter run off of the back, obviously, of the first implement, which was the 3,000-meter assault bike, followed by the sled pulls. Looks like she might have an early ascendancy here coming off the back of the run. This is tough at this point, but just to mention, on the occasion, she's just flashing a smile.
So Coralie Fantona looking to be slowing down a little bit on her assault runner, getting there first, but her judge's hand is still not up for the 500-meter indication. Whereas in lane 2, we've got Maxine Smith making a big attack from the back. Less than 300 meters left.
Matt, we saw in the last round from Cora, again, not off the implement first, but sled pull was where she makes up her ground. So if you're watching in, I think it's imperative to watch exactly where this event is won and lost.
And just going back to running style, looking at this wide-angle shot over here that we just had, you can see right away athletes that are maybe more comfortable on this assault runner. I have heard that a heavier, taller athlete might be a little bit, the assault runner might favor them because you can actually put your weight behind your stride. But having a look at that previous shot there, our athlete in lane 1, just going back to the screen over here, we've got our first athlete off the assault runner for their 2,000 meters. That is Alicia Stoop.
Looks like we have a few athletes now lining up to start their sled pull. But you can see how much effort that takes out of you. And that's a gassy movement, Matt. Like off the back of a run, that is an insanely gassy movement.
But as we saw in these rebel tips over here that popped up on the screen earlier, you can see Alicia is using her full body. She's leaning almost all the way back. And as she finishes that pull, just a giant pop of the hip to get that final little...
Which is wise because I think if you leave it all to grip, you're definitely going to be burning out in the middle of this workout.
So we've got 4 athletes now down on the ground and starting their sled drags. Alicia already finished a full round and moving on to her second length. just 4 athletes remaining on the assault runners.
For the most part, a very similar pacing strategy we're seeing here from these athletes, Matt.
Yeah, but having a look, Coralie van Tonde jumping onto that assault runner first and now dropping down into 3rd position currently, moving that sled across the floor.
This was where she pulled into a lead in the first portion of this workout. So let's see if she does that again. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's headed on to her 3rd pull now. 2nd.
Tammy Taylor with a couple of meters left on her assault runner.
For those of you watching who are more proficient runners, just to note that if you have not used an assault runner, it is a very different thing, and your times on a traditional flat surface are not comparable to the assault runner. The stimulus is entirely different. And as Matt mentioned, very posterior chain fired up. Cora in view right now, getting back onto that rope pull. Hand over hand is the standard.
Right in the middle of your lane over here, we've got Ingi Hussam Aldin. This is her 3rd semi-finals event in 3 years. So she's qualified as an individual female athlete for 3 years running. Back in 2021, finishing in 11th place. In 2022, finishing in 16th place in fittest in Cape Town. So I'm sure she's definitely back and keen to, drop in the rankings. With 3 back-to-back semi-final individual appearances, very impressive from Ingi Hussam Aldin. Flying all the way in from Egypt.
Yeah, that's when you know you've got to be serious about this one. We're seeing our first move being made right now. Final portion of the workout. 1,000 meters of skiing. Now, Matt, I don't know about you, but personally, out of all of the implements available, I think a ski erg is the one I would least favor if I was given the option.
I'm not a huge fan of the ski erg myself. This seems like a very easy machine to kind of move your way around, but it bites. And what's going to be quite interesting over here, if you've had a look at some of the technique of the woman on the sled, moving over to the ski erg, we're pretty much doing the exact same thing, but in opposite direction. I don't know if you picked that up.
Yeah.
You can just see the movement pattern on the ski erg.
And Matt, also interesting to mention, like these elite ladies performing at an absolutely elite level. 25 minutes, we're at it already. A little over 4 minutes left in this workout. It is an insanely massive body of work.
As you saw there on your screen, that was Carla van Staden, your last lady to jump onto her assault runner. But making that running look like a breeze.
Alicia Stroop with an early ascendancy and looking comfortable at the moment on that ski erg. Matt, while we are talking about it, the Open, how did you find it? Boz's first opportunity to program an Open. What were your thoughts?
I really liked the test that came through this year. I remember last year in 2021, the Open seemed to be not as skill intensive. And like a lot of the talk was, anyone could get through the Open last year and into quarterfinals if you had the fitness. And then this year, on the complete flip side, introducing high skill movement right into the first event.
Yeah.
I thought that really kind of put down we are here and this is the Open and this is what the test is going to be like for the rest of the year. And looking at, following on from that, the quarterfinals and the semifinals, like you can see that the tests have been on another level.
Absolutely. Look, I think you're 100% spot on. That was very well articulated, good sir. At the end of the day, if you look at 2022, very inclusive set of workouts. This year, we saw a throwback back to 2014 with 14.4. And what I love about that workout is a chipper, yes, but elegant in the sense that everybody could participate. Where the differentiator lied was deep into the workout, which is where your elite athletes would thrive. So Matt, did you bust out a couple of muscle ups?
I very unfortunately got injured towards the back end of last year and couldn't complete the open as I usually would. I jumped in and had to, scale the foundations.
Absolutely.
But I was there, and I was there with my community, and it was amazing.
That's what matters. The sport is community orientated, and must have been a vibe. Friday Night Lights?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, taking a step back from, being more on the competitive side to, being on the front kind of face of, look guys, this is for everyone. Like, I couldn't bend over and touch my toes for 3 months, but I was able to complete all 3 open tests.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that was the first one. And then we were hit with an interesting movement in the context of our open season. So we had shuttle runs, which we'd not necessarily seen before, coupled with a burpee pull-up. How did you find that one?
That was interesting, and I mean, I found the standard on the burpee pull-up a little bit tricky, obviously because of the height of your athletes. And I know, burpee to rig, but with a set distance away from the rig, expecting, on the organizational side, setting up for, your vast range of athlete heights.
Oh, you probably had to adjust the rig quite a bit then, yeah.
But how many people didn't go ahead and do that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, very true. I must admit, I kind of like that workout, if I'm being honest with you. It was really, really, really incredible from a, you could keep it moving and you could kind of recover on the run. So to me, again, but then where it was a big differentiator was the thruster. A single 1-rep max thruster, part B to that workout.
And again, the thruster was an awesome test. Movement standard. Let's just have a look back on the floor. We'll come back to this because this is a good conversation to lead on to. Alicia Stoop is now just finished off her 1,000 meter ski erg.
Keeping in mind we've got 30 seconds left in this workout.
30 seconds to go.
This is going to be an all-out war to the finish.
And
Alicia running away with this currently in first, but who is going to lock up second place? That is the big question right now.
15. 10 seconds. 5, 2, 1. There you have it.
Incredible performance from these ladies. We got to see elite level fitness on the floor right now. Looks like that event win unofficially goes to Alicia Stoop. Alicia Stoop, incredible pacing strategy. She didn't necessarily have the lead at any given point through one of the implements, but as she came off of the runner, she held that lead all the way through to the very end, pacing her ski erg beautifully and then executing her rope pulls at the end till the time cap incredibly. Now we're about to head over to the second heat. You'll see the ladies come to the floor in just a little bit. Ready. Matt, as you can see from what we're seeing, that hip drive came into effect real early.
Yeah, so just going back on it, obviously Coralie van Tondo with a big start. She came out first, jumped on the machine. And then just kind of falling off in that 2,000 meter run. But look at the amount of effort that these sleds took out of every individual athlete.
Yeah. There we had an image of Alicia, and now back to Cora, the two ladies who at the ascendancy of this workout. Alicia, again, as you can see, really made up her ground on the running. That was the turning point in the workout for her.
And on the screen now in the replay, that is Carla van Staden, who really came undone a little bit on that sled drag. But just looking at her frame, a much smaller person.
Absolutely.
So I think the weight ratio over there might have just been a little bit off.
Yeah, it's a beautiful test in that you would naturally assume that the smaller athletes would struggle a little bit more with the sled pull, but then you've got a run, which I guess you could argue often tends to favor the lighter athletes.
All in all, an amazing first show from our ladies in heat number 1. We're going to take a little break, and then we will introduce our ladies moving straight into heat number 2. And on your screen, you can see our ladies lineup for the second heat. 7 South African women and 3 women representing from different countries. Lane number 1, we've got Sophia Benini. Lane 2, Thea Kruger. In lane 3, Max Klinsmith. In lane 4, Inge von Mansberg. And we will get through the rest of those as we commentate through this heat.
And off they are to the races now. Again, as we saw in the previous event, 3,000 meters on the assault bike, long, arduous grind. But Matt, I think if you don't mind us wagering a bet on from the booth, I think we're going to see somebody come in under time cap in this heat.
So in lane number 6, we've got Michelle Basnet, who is a well-known name. She has made it to, or she won the semi-final event in 2021, heading over to the CrossFit Games. But let's not, sell out on right next to her in lane number 5. We've got Annika Spies, who finished 5th last year at Fittest in Cape Town. Michelle Basnet only 2 spots ahead of her, finishing in 3rd. Annika Spies coming back just this week from an international weightlifting competition as well. So it'll be interesting to see how she performs over 3 days of fitness, just landing from another weightlifting tour.
Also interested to see how she moves that sled. I think that powerful background and obviously your Olympic weightlifting experience and the related lifts in order to strengthen that, transferring well to that sled pull. Continue with the names. Now, as Matt got to mention earlier, with the lane assignments in lane number 1, we have Sophia Bonini in lane number 2, Thea Kruger in lane number 3, Max Kleinsmith in lane number 4, Inge van Mansberg in lane number 5, Annika Spies in lane number 6, as mentioned, Michelle Basnet in lane number 7, Jessica Thompson, lane number 8, Megan Joy McDermott in lane number 9, we see Lisa Marie Guillamy, and finally in lane number 10, Dahlia Al-Amri. Is there? Oh, do you want to go?
Just going back to Michelle Basnet, right in the middle of your screen. Definitely trying to come back this year with a bit of a vengeance. She got edged out of that qualifying spot for the games last year. I think it came down to like the last event where she just couldn't pull through and Michelle Moran took the lead. So just going back to your favorites for this year, seeing as Michelle Basnet is in the middle of your screen, I think we're going to have a very close race between her and Christina Levidatakis. Just based on last year, Levidatakis finishing in 2nd, Basnet finishing in 3rd. It's going to be a good race. And even though these ladies have only qualified in the 2nd heat, or 10th to 20th position, they are still names to be reckoned with. At the end of the day, the semi-finals scoring starts at 0.
I'm assuming this is your side here, right? Who's running with one? Hit the button by accident. That's what I'm wondering. So, Matt, back to our previous discussion, we were talking about the open. So, we'd gotten to open workout number 2. The A part had been discussed, the B part. After all of that entire couplet of, it was burpee pull-ups as well as shuttle runs, we were off to the races on now a heavy movement in the form of a thruster.
A 1 max thruster from the floor. How controversial are we getting in this booth over here? So I do find that the movement standard for the thruster was not very well executed. Already in the open announcement, we had some of the athletes not really adhering to that open standard. And I can only imagine that behind closed doors and inside affiliates, that standard just kind of maybe got a little bit worse and worse as things went along. However, the thrust off the ground, a really nice movement, different from your regular 1 rep max snatch, regular from your clean and jerk. Let's just head back down to the screen here. We've got Michelle Basnet off her 2,000 meter assault bike.
making great work of that sled. You already see a lot less effort, would seem, than what we saw maybe potentially in the first heat. She's moving methodically, got off the bike, and does not seem to be too fatigued off the back of that assault bike.
And not a whole lot between your ladies in this second heat. Pretty much all of our women are back onto the sled pools, already off that 3,000 meter assault bike.
Michelle moving methodically at the moment.
And again, we're going to see a variation of, different movements over here, different skills, different tips that we'll be able to pick up.
Onto her second length now is Michelle.
Right, then just next to Michelle, we've got in lane 8, Megan Joy Domont. She's pretty close, just behind Michelle Basnet.
Now, Matt, I did venture to say that I would put money on the fact that we were going to see the time cap getting beaten. At the moment, Michelle's pace looking on track for that.
Still looking strong, but as we saw in the first heat, I think a lot of this is going to come down to the run.
You're
Michelle
right.
looking very strong on the sled, but again, this is her second of 9 pulls at the end of the day, 9 lengths.
Absolutely. That's very well articulated. And look, she's about to go on to the third right now. It'll be interesting to see just what the baseline on that 2K looks like in terms of aggregate time. Lanes 1, 2, and 3 having an absolute dogfight at the moment. It's maybe a point in the race where you don't want to put in too much emphasis to get ahead of the person next to you.
In lane number 1, as you can see over here, we've got Sophia Bonini. She is the youngest athlete at the semi-final event, turning 19 years old this weekend, actually.
Matt, I mean, I think it's a common fact now in the CrossFit world that we're just seeing that the level of competitor that is reaching the highest heights is getting younger and younger year by year. We know, obviously, unfortunately, this week, Mel O'Brien pulling out of the CrossFit Games. But a classic example, Paige Powers, Hayley Adams, who unfortunately isn't participating this year, and Emma Lawson, incredibly young athletes hitting peak performance at a very young age. It makes you wonder, how early are we in the journey of seeing our elite level athletes being teenagers?
100%. And I think what we pick up here in, the Africa region is that we don't really have that. The age of our competitors, generally speaking, definitely a lot older, kind of between that 28 and 40 mark.
Yeah.
Just having a look at the athletes competing this year.
Michelle back into her run.
I think the earlier we can educate,
Yeah.
more than anything else, about the benefits of this type of sport, the sooner we can try and move with the times and get these athletes into the game at a younger stage. But we're still stuck, unfortunately, in a time where this type of sport is not prioritized, especially at schools, on a school level. And just popping up there at the top of your screen now, that is Sophia Bonini. That is the 19-year-old, the youngest woman in the field for the weekend. Coming back to Michelle Basnet right in the middle. She looks cool, calm. She's definitely run on an assault runner once or twice. on your screen now, we've got Lisa Marie Guillaume, your last lady to get onto the assault runner to kickstart her 2,000 meter run.
Sophia looking incredibly comfortable on that run, really looking like she's hitting a beautiful stride, attacking this really nicely. Interested to see how she stacks up at the end of the day. Michelle looking, again, I think the word that I've been using to describe how she's attacking this workout is methodical.
And this is a surprising one over here. Annika Spies on your screen at the moment. We did kind of put her down as a favorite, especially in the sled pool, due to the weightlifting background.
Absolutely. Look, interesting approach as well to the workout, Matt, because one of the first athletes I'm seeing favoring a front foot stance and then alternating, as opposed to effectively using that hip drive with 2 feet grounded, equidistant to the start line.
So a different technique to the rest and slower to the runner. We've just hit the 11-minute mark. We've got 19 minutes left in this workout, a nice long 30-minute time cap. Max Kleinsmith
on your screen right now.
And Inga von Mansberg on your screen as well now. As you can see on your screen, this is Annika Spies having a really tough time dragging that sled.
For those watching, seeing some of the top ladies in this heat making easy work of that, do not underestimate the weight of that, and then also coupling that with the fact that you've got all of that weight on a rubber surface. All that to say, an extremely accomplished weightlifter, so it's a difficult task.
Annika got 2.5 meters left with that sled, but let's bear in mind that there's 80 kilograms weighing down that sled, not to mention the fact that it is a material-based sled, dragging along a rubber floor. But Annika Spies just makes her final pull, tugs it over the line, and will be joining the rest of the ladies in this heat on the assault runner for her 2,000-meter assault run. On your screen now, you've got Sophia Benini and Thea Kruger.
Matt, just something to keep in mind statistically. The average weight of the ladies across the field, 54 to top it at around 70 kgs. When you consider the weight of that sled and that they're pulling more than their body weight across a rubber floor for 3 to 4, with 3 lengths at a time, it's a massive effort.
Most definitely, and this is also what we saw with the sandbag earlier. Things are just getting heavier and more high-skilled in all the programming kind of across, CrossFit as a whole. As like we had this discussion this morning with stretch, is as you kind of think you're getting good at something, there's another spanner in the works that gets kind of thrown in there. And the weights on a sled drag for the ladies 5 years ago would never have been 80 kilograms. But the fact that now everyone has just adapted, 80 kilos, and these ladies are pulling it across the floor 3 times, it's quite an incredible feat. On your screen now, Lisa Marie Guillaume just taking a little break, resting on the side of that assault runner. We saw someone else do that previously in the last heat. Michelle Basnet now just ticking away at those meters.
Matt, I know we had a conversation earlier about the median age of your elite level CrossFitter getting younger and younger, but now that we did bring Mel O'Brien as a topic to the fore, what are your thoughts now that she was pipped to be number 1? Who do you think is next in line for that ascendancy? Yes, I realize that there's speculation and I am putting you on the spot, but who do you think, if you could throw 3 names in the hat?
This is always a very tricky one, and this year in particular, we've seen a lot of the big names drop out. I really cannot pinpoint 1 or 2 or 3 names that I think might be in the top there, because we keep being surprised. We don't really know what these guys are doing in their training and how much they truly are improving as the year goes on. But yeah, obviously with Tia being out having a baby, and
Mel now being out.
Yeah, Mel being out as well, the door is open.
Absolutely.
And just, that's on the games level. Coming back here, we've got a very similar situation, even in this ladies' heat, where, our kind of top contender from previous years, Michelle Basnet, has been dropping down on the leaderboard, looking at her open and her semi-finals performances from her previous years. Michelle Miranda is out and in the teams. So, Christina Levitakis has been up there. The door is open, but it doesn't mean that she's taking the spot.
No, absolutely. It does seem like it's a common trend at the moment that that number 1 spot, or the crowned queen, as it would be better deemed, is all but open. Back to the more international scene, I will say this, Matt, and call me a man of bold predictions. I would put 3 names in the hat right now, personally. I think Emma Lawson, incredible rookie season, really young, coming and looking incredibly capable. Also, not to mention, out of Mayhem, Paige Powers, incredible season out at Wadapalooza, shocked a few. We thought maybe that was going to be an entirely different result, and she came to the fore. And one can never really write off Laura Horvath, who seems to have been working on that one hole in the game, which was the handstand push-ups.
Yeah, and Laura Horvath as well, coming in, putting up a great show in previous events, but, always falling behind in 1 or 2 events that, really just drag her down the leaderboard.
Absolutely, and that weakness for her specifically was the handstand push-up, which does seem that her and her coaching team have put a bit of a maniacal attention on.
You got to be good at everything.
Absolutely. A sport which truly exposes holes, but back to what we're seeing on the floor right now, Michelle Basnet looking like she is chipping away at this really nicely. We're approaching the 20-minute mark. Keeping in mind this is a 30-minute time cap.
Max Klinsmith, her judge's hand is in the air first, so she's got 400 meters remaining. Just looking at Max Klinsmith as well, she is a South African, and another one of the ladies that is not training in South Africa currently. She's coming out of the WITS CrossFit in London, the UK. Came all the way back to South Africa, to her home turf, to throw down in the semi-final event.
She looks like she's just about ready to transition onto her second set of sled pulls right now.
Giving herself a bit of a lead here in the first stage. She can get through her first stage. She will give herself a big hug side. And both feet must be planted on the floor.
Our focus now is on Sofia Benini. Again, your youngest athlete, and off her assault runner second. Ken called it earlier, saying that she was looking very smooth on the runner.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you watch people run with the level of grace, you just understand that that running is well within their wheelhouse. And she's about to get cranking now on her first of 3 lengths of sled pulls. Keeping in mind that's 82 kilos on the sled on a really tricky surface.
And let's just bear in mind, coming straight out of a 2,000 meter run into some heavy sled drags, those legs, the lactic acid buildup at the moment must be on another
Absolutely,
level.
Matt. And I think you called it, right? Posterior chain is where it's at. The assault runner obviously forcing you to be a bit of a 4-foot runner, but also lighting up the posterior chain. Then transitioning through to a heavy sled pull, which is going to obviously light up the posterior chain, especially at the activation of the hips at the top of the movement. In focus now, we have Michelle Bazinet down to her final 200 meters now. She did have an early ascendancy here, Matt, so one has to assume that her running attack strategy was maybe where she might have lost out, similar to what we saw with Cora in the previous heat.
But once again, hard and fast on the sled drag. So let's see what she can do now in the second set of sleds.
Michelle getting to work on those sled pulls. Now, in the first round of sled pulls, Matt, Michelle just looked ultra efficient, and it feels like she's picking up exactly where she left off. Maybe this is the strategy for her. Let's not burn ourselves out on the cardio implements. Let's send it on the pulls.
On screen now, we've got Megan Joy Domat onto her second set of sled pulls. 3 lengths these ladies need to get through. And on your screens now, your lane closest to you, Sofia Benini, right on the heels of Max Klinsmith. Feel like we are gearing up for a little bit of a race over here between these two ladies.
Don't we just love a good race, Matt?
Right in the middle, though, you can see how quickly Michelle Bazinet managed to finish a full length. She's already walking back to bring that sled back for her second length.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to witness, Matt, because she's not necessarily the first or the fastest off of any particular cardio implement, but her rate of moving that mass across the floor is the fastest. Now, it does seem that this is where the race is won or lost, so let's see heading into that ski erg next if that strategy pays dividends or if it's a trap waiting to happen. Here after the final heat for the ladies for event 1 this morning. Blistering pace being set by these ladies, but interesting attack strategy as far as programming is concerned, Matt. Putting 30 minutes up front to start of your weekend for 7 events.
I think it's a very smart move. As we mentioned earlier, the movements are not extremely technical. You're not coming into your competition weekend with a little sprint where the nerves are high. There's a lot of room for error. Making a mistake on a pull-up bar or in a rope climb or something like that. I think this is really the best way to get the weekend going. A nice long chipper event, you know, get into the mood of competition, get comfortable on the competition floor, and yeah, we drop the hammer later in the weekend.
Seeing Max out in lane 3 being the first to transition through to that ski erg. Now, looking comfortable already, I think really smart approach here, because I think going out too sandy on that ski erg really setting you up for failure near the end. But you can see taking a good breath at the top of it, finding rest at the top of that movement, looking methodical.
Annika Spies catching up a little bit now on the assault runner. But are we going to see a repeat of the dreaded sled?
Well, she has to get back there eventually.
Sophia Benini not far behind Max, getting to the Concept 2 ski erg. Second.
Sophia's really done incredible work, I must admit, Matt, because coming in, definitely not the first off of any implement, but she looks like she's been very calculated in her approach to the entire workout thus far. On screen, Michelle Bazinet previously seeing her chip away at those sled pulls. She's definitely been fastest on those, but not being able to catch up just yet. Who knows? Maybe we have a last second flurry. We do love a good race at the end.
And as we saw on your screens there, Annika Spies just getting off that 2,000 meter run.
Michelle now onto her ski erg, but safe to say Max definitely looking the more comfortable of the two athletes. Matt?
Yeah, I must agree. And Thea Kruger right over there in lane number 2 on your screen now. Jumping onto that ski, you can see using that full body approach to kind of drop some weight behind those handles. You know, we're trying to look for slow calculated strokes here that are going to get us the furthest distance.
Absolutely.
Bumping up that heart rate just before going back into the sled.
And it's imperative to use your anatomical advantage should you have that in any of these cardio implements. If you're a taller athlete, these implements do tend to favor you, and you've got some weight to put behind it, it does tend to favor you too. Michelle Bazinet again in view. Looks like she's ramping up the pace again, Matt. Maybe she's got second breath under her.
Well, she does have tons of international CrossFit competition experience. So seeing a late break from Michelle would not surprise me. And that's just what's going to separate a lot of the athletes. I've had a chat with, especially in the teams, that veteran team that's come in. I've had a couple of personal chats with some of those guys in the past, and they say the biggest difference between, for instance, AJ Smith in 2021 finishing third on the podium in a stacked field of youngsters. He said that all came down to experience, knowing when to push, knowing how hard to go, who to keep in your line of sight. And I think coming into your first or second competition, you don't have that experience. The more experience you have, and that's what we might see come out of Michelle Bazinet.
While on the topic of names known to the South African circuit, we had a look at Annika Spies there a second ago. The wheels falling off a little bit early in the competition, Matt.
Just having a look at the clock there, we've got 1 minute to go. And at the previous heat, we only had our leading lady get one length of the sled pull. We still have 3 women in this heat not yet onto the sled with 50 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, I think at this point, Matt, it might be safe to say that the score to beat might be in heat 1 at the moment. Unless we see a late break in transition. And if that is the case, Max might be your athlete.
30 seconds remaining. Max Thomas has 100 meters to go.
100 meters for Max. She might make a late break, but might not have a time to get her hands back on that rope, though.
Now is the time. 20 seconds left on the clock.
She's up the send factor. 15 seconds remaining. Michelle putting down the hammer as well. Max has finished it up. Not going to have enough time to get to the rope.
5 seconds left. She just lays down.
Got to pick your spots. Incredible effort by these ladies. And as you can see on the floor, we have a graveyard. A tough event, Matt, but a great showing by these ladies.
Max Glenseth taking the heat win, but not quite on the level of the ladies in the first heat. We had a couple of ladies get back to that final round of sled. But from what we could see up here, Max taking the win, Sophia Benini in second, and Michelle Basnet in third.
We're about to transition through to the third and final heat for the ladies of event 1. Again, a massive shout out to every single individual who put up their hand to volunteer for this event. You make it possible. Stretch in view there. Absolute legend of an MC.
Let's look at a couple of replays. Coming out on the bike, everyone had a nice steady pace, but obviously Michelle Basnet jumping off the bike first, as we saw in the first heat.
Yeah, Annika Spies as well, pipped as a potential favorite. The wheel's coming off a little bit, but you know what? It is a long weekend, Matt. There's an opportunity to correct along the way. Steady pace off of the assault bike, which wasn't the make or break portion of this. We did see Michelle Basnet get off the assault bike first and make light work of that sled.
Yeah, she looked really strong coming out of that first round, but you know, I think the 2,000 meter run just took a little bit too much out of her. A really impressive performance by this lady on the screen, though, Sophia Benini. I'm very impressed. I'm looking forward to watching her compete for the rest of the weekend, if I'm honest.
Yeah, look, we are loving the trend that the median age of individuals coming through from the lady side specifically is younger, and she definitely has a lot of youth on her side. So, much like you, excited to see what she has to put on offer this weekend.
As we mentioned earlier, a couple of ladies in this previous heat from different countries. Some of South African origin, but I mean, having a look over here on the screen, we had Michelle Basnet. She's living in the USA at the moment, born in South Africa. But going back to lane 1, Sophia Benini, born in Morocco and living in Spain. So she's really traveling all over the world to get here.
Gee whiz, you know you've got to be serious about your CrossFit journey if you're willing to make the trip out for quarterfinals, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You've got to back yourself at that level.
On screen there, we had Lisa Marie Guillaume, also just struggling a little bit through the first round of sledge pulls, getting to the salt runner a little bit later than the rest of the pack.
This was a final flurry at the end. We saw a bunch of these ladies go full send.
We'll be back shortly and setting up for our women's heat number 3 for event 1.